Our scripture today is 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." But Samuel said, "How can I go? Saul will hear about it and kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate." Saul did what the Lord said. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. They asked, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel replied, "Yes, I come in peace. I come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the service. When they arrived, Saul saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at things that man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Then Jesse called to Abinadab, and passed him in front of Saul. But Samuel had Shammah pass by. But Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There is still the youngest," Jesse answered, "but he is tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." So he sent and had him brought in. He was ruddy, with a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. He is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of the brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came upon David in power. Samuel then went to Ramah. Barb will now bring us the message.
Thank you, Jim. This is a political situation we got here. And I have to explain some backstory on this. Samuel was the last judge. Now, after the people came into the promised land, the tribes were given land, and they settled on it. And you get into the book of Judges. And the one phrase in the book of Judges you got to remember is, "And every man did what was right in his own sight." Okay? It was tribal. Tribe, tribe, family, tribe, tribe, tribe. Okay? Whenever they had a problem, usually it was someone coming in, trying to push them aside, attack them. Then they would suddenly discover, "Oh, God, yes, our Lord, yes." And they would cry to the Lord, and the Lord would send them a judge. Now, you all know what a judge does. A judge sits and listens to sides and makes a decision which side is right and which side is wrong. But these judges had another job. They led the army too. Or they incited. So there was, because I'm thinking of Deborah. Deborah didn't go into battle, but she picked out a general and said, "You go in battle and get up there and do it." Okay? In the book of Judges, there are 13 judges. And the one I really remember is Ehud. Why do I remember Ehud? He's left-handed. And you say, so? Well, you see, that's how he freed his people, because he was left-handed. They were being assaulted by this other nation. Moabites, I think is what they were. And what he did was he came and he says, "I have come to speak to the king." And he shows up, and they look at his right hand. It's empty. It's empty. Look, it's empty. It's empty. Okay, you can go in. They didn't have those fancy things where they zoom over you to see if there's, anything else around you. You don't have to walk through a little portal to hear anything go bing, bing, bing. They just checked his hand. Nothing in that hand. So he went in to see the king and stabbed him. And then he left. And he told him on the way out, oh, he's resting now. But that is how he freed his people from an enemy. Others actually went to war. They gathered the armies up from the different tribes, put them together, and they went to war. And they would repulse whoever was trying to encroach on their land. That's what a judge did. There were 13 judges. The last judge that you find in the book of Judges is Samson, and you all know Samson. Now, I must admit that Samson wasn't exactly an exemplary judge. No, he was kind of wild and loose. But, he did what he had to, and he freed his people, too. At the very end, he reclaimed what his mission was. You come to the book of Samuel. You have two judges, Eli and Samuel. Samuel was the one whose mother went, and she had no children, and she wept at the temple, and Eli saw her and thought she was drunk. And he said, what's wrong with you, woman? Get out of here. And she said, no. I'm praying to the Lord. I want a son. If I had a son, I would dedicate him to the Lord. And he says, go. She had a son. And when he was weaned, she brought him to the temple, and he was raised in the temple. He was then called by the Lord to serve him. Remember that? He was sleeping and he heard a voice. You calling me? He went and talked. Eli, did you call me? No, I didn't call you. Went back. Go back, lay down. Eli, did you call me? No, you lay down. Eli. It's God. Listen. Just listen to him. Okay. Samuel was a good judge. But then it came time, he's getting old, and he had 2 sons. But his sons were not. They took bribes. Okay. He was raising them up to be judges to take his place, but they were corrupt. And the people said, we don't want them, they're no good. They take false testimony, and you give them enough money, they'll decide in your way and no. We want a king. We want a king to rule over us. And more importantly, lead us into battle when we have to. Well, Samuel said, you're renouncing me. And they said, he went to God and he says, these people, they're renouncing me. And God said, no, they're not renouncing you. They're renouncing me. I was the head of the Israelites. But now they're calling for a king to be their head. So you tell them, yeah, you'll give them a king. But you tell them first what the king will do. He's going to take your sons and your daughters. He's going to take them as servants. Okay? He's going to be working for him. He's going to be working to feed his group of people that go with him. Because if you have a king, you've got to have a council. You've got to have guards. You got to have a lot of things. So you're going to lose your sons and your daughters. They're going to take 1/10 of whatever you produce because they need the food, they need the taxes in order to feed all their servants. And they're going to take some of your land because they need some place to put their servants. Do you still want a king? Yes, we want a king. So that's how they got Saul. Saul was from Bethlehem. He was a Benjamite. And he was out one day, and he was tall. He was tall. He's real tall. He was really good looking, really, He was one of those politicians you say, oh, yeah, I'll vote for him. Mm-hmm. And he was out looking for some missing livestock, and he ran into Samuel. And Samuel spoke to him, and the Lord spoke and said, choose him. Okay. So he anointed him, poured oil over him. And I've always thought pouring oil over someone is kind of nasty, you know. But it really was a blessing. And then he told Saul, he says, now I'm going to tell you some things. And this is to tell you that you are chosen. He says, you're going to go so far and you're going to meet someone. They're going to tell you, hey, the livestock's been found. It's back at your uncle's. Then you're going to go a little further and you're going to run into some prophets. Okay? And the Spirit is going to come over you and you're going to join those prophets for a while. Now, when these things happen, you will know that you are the anointed one. And that's exactly what happened. Well, he went out. Samuel went to the tribes and says, now it's time. I'm going to tell you who the king is. I want each tribe to come forward. He picked the Benjamites. Every family in the Benjamites come forward. He picked the family of Saul. Then he went through the family of Saul, and Saul was missing. He was hiding out in the bush. He was hiding. Okay, go get him in here. Suddenly he became very shy. I don't know why. But he was chosen, and it was sort of by lot, if you think about it. He was chosen. And he went to battle. He gathered the troops together, and they got enthused, and they went, and they were winning. Winning. You know, when you have a winning team, you've got a lot of support. Everybody wants to be involved. Well, there came a time when he went to battle. Now, before they go to battle, they call up Samuel, and he would come and do a sacrifice, asking for the Lord's presence in them as they do battle. Well, Samuel said, I'll be there in 10 days. So Saul's got his troops together, and he's sitting there, 9, 10, and the troops are getting a little nervous. They're starting to disappear. They're hiding in caves. You know, they're sort of sidling out of the camp and, going into the underbrush, because they're getting scared. And Saul sees this, and he gets nervous. And he says, okay, we're going to do the sacrifice. Samuel's not here. I'm going to do it. And he did it. Just then, Samuel shows up and said, what are you doing? You did something that was wrong. You were not to do the sacrifice. Didn't you trust that God would be with you? Number 1. Number 2. He was told to go and destroy these people because they had, as when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, they had harassed them. So the Lord said they must be punished. And what the Lord called for Saul to do was totally to destroy them. Everything. Everything. Sounds kind of drastic, but that's what the Lord said. Well, Saul did. He went battle, and he did a lot of battle, and he won. But instead of destroying everything, he kept the best sheep, the best cattle, the best goats, the nicest things. And Samuel comes to him and he says, why do I hear sheep baaing? What is all these sheep baaing about? And he says, oh, well, I saved them to be sacrificed to the Lord. And I said, no, you did not obey the Lord. 2. And that's when he said, because you will not obey, the Lord is no longer going to support you as king. And Samuel left. Now, Saul was still king. But. So that's where we come to today. Saul was really nice looking, and he had a lot of personality, and he was really, really a nice guy, and Samuel was really heartbroken that he had to tell him that the Lord's not going to support you. You're just not obeying God when he tells you to do something. You're just not doing it. He's just not doing it. So we have the Lord telling Samuel, Stop grieving. And I have to ask you, how many times have we held on to something that we thought was going to be, the cat's meow, it's going to be golden, it's going to be wonderful, this is what I have to do, this is what I've been chosen to do, and it just didn't play out. Whether it was a relationship, an activity, a destination, doors got shut, obstacles arose, it just never, ever happened. And you would go back and you say, I was in a church once where they grieved over the fact that they didn't fill the church up totally. That included the balcony. You know, they grieved over this. This is what they remembered. Well, what does the Lord say to Samuel? Stop grieving. I've got a job for you. Stop looking back and saying, if it only had done this and I'd done that, and this would have happened. If I won the lottery, things like this. I didn't win the lottery. He said, I have a job for you. We're going forward. So when you're looking at life, and sometimes things don't go the way you think they should, the way you're positive they should go, don't grieve over it. Pick yourself up and look around, because the Lord has another thing for you to do, another purpose, another relationship, another destination. So don't worry about what happened. Look forward to what will happen. And that's what the Lord is telling Samuel in here. Get the horn of oil. I want you to go to Jesse's, and we're going to pick one of his sons. But Saul's going to kill me if he finds out. Tell him you're taking a sacrifice. Get a heifer. Take it along with you, because that's, tell him you're going to sacrifice this heifer. So he picks up his horn of oil, and he picks up he leads the heifer. He doesn't pick it up. And he comes to Bethlehem. And the leaders of the town come out. In every translation, it says they're trembling. They're trembling. They're scared. What does this mean? This is Samuel. He is the spokesman for God. And he's showing up on our doorstep. Did we do something wrong? Is there somebody here who did something really, really wrong? And is he coming to punish us? The presence of the Lord is so powerful. You have fear. And that's something, as human beings, we don't like fear. But that's what the Lord will have. It says in the Bible, fear the Lord. Fear the Lord. I have great respect for the police. And sometimes I'm fearful when I'm past them and I'm checking my speed. Did I go? That little streak of fear comes in there. But what you have to remember is the Lord is all powerful. And that's what the people in Bethlehem knew. And they were afraid. And he says, no, I just came to do a sacrifice. Could you invite Jesse's family to come? And you have that 7 sons, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the Lord says, yeah, I know that first son. He was nice looking. He was tall and he was handsome. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the heart. It doesn't matter how much you prettify yourself on the outside. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter how you dress. It doesn't matter how you adorn yourself. The Lord doesn't look at that. The Lord looks at your heart. And he says, nope. And we get to David. David's out watching the sheep. Oh, get him in here. Now, I looked up to see about how old would this boy be. 12 to 15. Now, if you think about it, I would put a 12-year-old out to watch sheep. But, 15-year-old too. But because you got to protect the sheep. There's things out there that want to eat them. So you've got to have enough strength to be big enough to, protect them. David comes in and he anoints him as king of Israel. The other thing you must realize is David does not actually become the king of Israel until he's 30 years old. Now think about that. He was anointed 12, 15. He did not become actually king until he was 30. The promise was made. The promise was kept. God sometimes takes time. I was frying bacon this morning. You got to take time with bacon. You can't put that heat up too fast. You put that heat up too fast. And I'm looking at this bacon. Come on, bacon. Come on, bacon. Well, it was 5, maybe 4. Let me put it up to 5. Let me flip that bacon. Maybe it'll look better if I flip the bacon, yeah. I don't know. Sometimes you just have to take your time. As human beings. And the worst thing is, Samuel wasn't even alive when David became king. He's long dead. Long dead. But he had anointed him and told him, you will be king. What did we learn? The Lord looks at your heart. You take care of your heart. I know we take care of our teeth. We take care of our feet. We take care of our body, our fingers, legs. We take care of these things. But for the Lord, you take care of your heart. Keep it clean. Know what you should and should not do, and be not afraid to step out to do the right thing. Samuel did it. He wasn't too happy about, crossing Saul, but he did it. And the Lord was with him in his presence and led him. The second thing is, be fearful of the Lord. Be fearful of the Lord. Because he does read your heart, and he does know what you're thinking, and he does know what you do. And while you may tell others you didn't, no, the Lord knows. The third thing is time. Time. Give the Lord time. Sometimes it takes a while for things to come to fruition. How long? You plant the seed. You got to water it. You got to put some sun on it. How long does it take? There's some plants that only bloom every 10 years. Can you imagine sitting around waiting for your plant to bloom? 10 years? But that's what their Lord. See, the Lord's time is not our time. Annette and Jim sang, "Stand by me." That's what you've got to take into life. When things get rough and things don't seem to go your way and everything seems to be going wrong and what you think should happen didn't happen, turn to the Lord. He'll give you the strength and the courage to pick yourself up and then do what he has called you to do. And what you do, you may never see the fruition of it. You may never see what happens afterwards. But you've done your job. And that's what's important. This is Lent. Lent is a time of thinking. Lent is a time of considering your life because a sacrifice was made for you. And you have to look at your life to see if you are worthy of that sacrifice. Check your heart. Yeah, and I know your blood pressure, your pulse, and your respiration too while you're at it. But check your heart and how you're living, what you say, what you do. And do these things in fear of the Lord. And trust on him. Trust on him.